Okay, cool. Welcome to the Biohackers webinar. My name is Teemu Arina. I'm your host today. And I'm also the curator of the Biohackers Summit that is held annually in Helsinki and also semi-annually in different countries. Like we were recently in Stockholm and we have been to UK and London. And next year we are planning perhaps Amsterdam. Let's see. And our flagship event is in Helsinki. That's going to be 13 and 14 of October this year. And if you are interested to join us there, it's going to be a pretty amazing gathering of biohackers from all around the world. We have some promotions for you that are on the top of the stream. So if you're watching this on the webinar platform, you will see the links on the top. If you are on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or wherever, you will have the link to go to biohack.to/live. And that's where you will be also able to participate in a chat. And what I'm doing is also handing over some promotional gifts for anyone who asks questions. So you will be able to get your hands on to a previous Biohackers Summit event recording, all the talks, 10 plus hours usually of excellent talks. So if you ask a question on the chat, I will be choosing a few people by the end of this webinar to get their hands on the recording. So, but before we start on the chat, it would be cool if you just told where you're from, what makes you interested in biohacking, what brought you here, and if you have been to the Biohackers Summit before. Because our guest today, who is Anthony Di Clementi, he certainly has been to the Biohackers Summit as a speaker in 2016. He gave an excellent talk, and I had the opportunity to hang around with this dude for several days. And he recently wrote the foreword for the Biohackers Handbook exercise chapter. It's a pretty fun read. If you haven't checked it out, check it out also at biohackingbook.com. So I think everyone is waiting for Anthony, but let me tell you about the kind of structure here. So I will be asking questions from Anthony that you posted while registering to the event or on the live chat. And there is 100 questions. I'm not able to pick every single one, but I will be picking up some of them there. And without further ado, I think it's time for bringing Anthony online. So, what's up, man? Let me actually start the. Yeah. Okay. Try again. All right. Now you're coming through. Very good. Yeah. So, how's it going over there? Very cool. Okay, let me check. There is some shortage of, or let me see, some issue in streaming this to the right place. So just a second. It's always with live. There is some challenges sometimes. Okay. All right, try again.
All right.
Yeah.
How's it going, Teemu?
Now we are live, so very good. I had a little technical issue here, but now now you have also your audio coming through. So yeah, it's a sunny evening here in Helsinki. It's a beautiful day to do a podcast. I don't need any extra light because it's coming through the window. What time is it over there?
It is around 11:30 a.m. here in Wisconsin.
Fantastic. Cool. So We're going to be diving deep for the next hour into biohacking, physical exercise, and mental performance, and basically taking your body to a completely new level. So, what's your background? Kind of just to give you a little introduction to everyone, who they are plugging into.
Yeah, so I've been in the health and wellness space for a little over a decade, and for a long time went the traditional route, focusing on just diet and exercise. Got all the traditional certifications, nutrition specialist, NCSF certified personal trainer. I worked at one of the top gyms in the country. Also was a yoga instructor, and then I ended up getting really sick myself, which opened me up to an entire new paradigm that we refer to as biohacking, which looks at not just bringing the body's systems back into balance, but also all of the factors that contribute to health, energy, vitality. It kind of opened up my world and really changed the way that I approach things.
You're a pretty super fit guy, so I guess you've been through a lot of different exercise regimens and diets, and all kinds of different means for optimizing your physique and your body. So what have you learned, kind of in a nutshell, going through that journey?
Yeah, so my journey, to summarize the progression that I went through myself, it began more with the bodybuilder mentality, and that started right around puberty, when I became interested in girls and started reading Men's Health magazine and Muscle and Fitness and all of those that you would find in line at the grocery store. And I started finding that as I got older, that no longer served me as well. And then I kind of started getting into the extreme workouts like the CrossFit and Insanity, and went a little bit overboard with those, and ended up running myself into the ground. And that actually played a part in preceding my my downfall when I got sick. I had too many acute stressors in my life. And then today it's a lot more balanced. That was, now I do more yoga. I do more gentle exercise. That's enough to initiate an adaptive response in the body, light jogging, stretching. My girlfriend and I just went outside, shirtless, went for a jog, got some yoga in, did some different types of mobility and things to improve movement patterns. And then, there's more balance today than it's ever been.
Gotcha. I think I'm going to jump into some of the audience questions right away. So, all right. So there is Darian Lavangi is asking, I'm trying to build more muscle and I'm tall and thin. What is the best way? I'm by the way, kind of very interested in that answer as well, because I'm also tall and thin and, kind of more athletic when it comes to endurance sports and all those things. But what should I do if I want to bulk up a little bit?
Yeah. So what I've seen as the most effective approach for bulking is, if you want to get bigger, you have to get stronger first. And shifting focus to strength, specifically this is probably not something you haven't heard before, but compound movements. So you're looking at the bench press, the deadlift, the barbell squat, the overhead press, pull-ups, and getting really strong in some of those basic movement patterns and while consuming more calories is the best way to add muscle, add strength. Also keeping in mind that there is somewhat of an inverse relationship between the amount of time you spend in an anabolic state and some of those longevity markers. So it's a little bit of ebb and flow between, if you are going to focus on adding muscle, I recommend doing so for a short period of time, putting on as much muscle as you can, and then going back to working in some things that we know also serve us well with longevity, like intermittent fasting and finding that the right amount of calories without exceeding the amount that your body needs.
Gotcha. One thing that I personally been on in terms of diet is a highly ketogenic diet, and a lot of
Yeah, so I do think that the ketogenic diet is a fantastic base, especially as you mentioned, Teemu, if you want to be focused and have high amounts of mental energy. Going back to the question before that Dorian asked, you do want to cycle in periods of increased carbohydrate intake in order to build muscle and also prevent some of the downregulation in thyroid hormone, in sex drive that can occur if you're constantly in a state of ketosis. So I allow myself refeed days. If I notice my sex drive is decreased, if I notice that my muscles become a little bit soft, which can happen when I'm in ketosis for too long, then I'll have a day where I allow myself higher amounts of carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, yams, squash, yuca, taro, cassava, white rice, and plantains, and even fruit. And I try to still find the sweet spot where I'm not putting myself into a food coma or spiking blood sugar any more than is necessary, looking for that minimum effective dose. But for me, yeah, it's a lot of times ketogenic, but then also allowing yourself carbohydrates to get that anabolic spike post-workout and also to keep energy and sex drive where you want them.
I gotcha. So what is the sign that your sex drive goes down? Is the sign of low testosterone, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so low testosterone can be one, and we see, I do a good amount of one-on-one coaching with guys, and a common pattern that I've fallen into myself and that a lot of guys are falling into lately, especially with the popularity of CrossFit and paleo and the ketogenic diet, is these high glycolytically demanding workouts, which is like these intense CrossFit style workouts, combined with 24/7 ketosis or 24/7 carb restriction. And weeks and months of that, you can find yourself with, we've seen on one extreme guys with non-functioning, man parts, and somewhere more in the mean, guys with lower energy. They're not recovering as well as they could. They're having difficulty putting on muscle. So there is an art and a science to this, and that is finding how to sync up your carbohydrate and caloric intake with your energy expenditure. And we're all different, so there is some experimentation that needs to take place there for all of us.
Gotcha. I see that you're drinking something. I assume that's coffee. I have a pretty cool Finnish coffee cup. This thing is reindeer bone, and it's made out of wood, and it actually sucks the taste of coffee in it. So that's my favorite way to have a cup of coffee. So I'm just gonna enjoy it. A quick sip. Love it. All of us love coffee, and there's a question from Michael Rosen. What are your thoughts on drinking caffeine early in the morning? I've seen studies that show that it disrupts cortisol production and that it is best to wait 2 or 3 hours after waking up before indulging into it. What are your thoughts on it?
So I like to minimize downtime in the morning. And basically, so that's from the point that I wake up or my alarm goes off if I'm waking up using an alarm to the time that I'm either, out getting a workout in or getting into work. And I utilize caffeine for that. I utilize caffeine to also increase lipolysis and burn more fat during my fasted morning workouts. And I do think that overall, with these types of questions, you want to find what works for you. My dad has Parkinson's, so we know that is a condition that involves low dopamine production. And caffeine coffee, both of those have been shown to increase dopamine production. We also know that caffeine has benefits as an mTOR inhibitor for decreasing risk of certain types of cancers. And I think a lot of people are myopically focused on the way that caffeine affects cortisol rhythm and affects the adrenals, which is intertwined. But we want to also ask ourselves, are those people getting outside and getting sunlight? Because not getting sunlight also disrupts your cortisol rhythm. If drinking coffee makes you feel irritable or jittery, then it may not be the best fit for you right now. Or you may be dealing with little things like not enough magnesium in your diet or not enough sunlight in your diet. I personally like caffeine, but again, you want to pay attention to how it makes you feel and go from there.
Gotcha. Yeah, there is also benefits for prostate health. It's one of the highest sources of antioxidants in Western diet for a lot of people. All these dark pigments are pretty good. I started drinking coffee as a health precaution. So I was never a coffee drinker really. I was a tea drinker. So now I do both. I'm cycling out caffeine 1 week out of a month. And the reason is the adenosine receptor kind of sensitivity that you get more adenosine receptors, and that's the reason why in the morning when you wake up you might feel without coffee even more sleepy until you get those adenosine receptors blocked with caffeine. So cycling out once a week, 1 week out of a month resets that kind of tolerance, and you also get more of the cognitive benefits of caffeine. But yeah, so there's many good things, also blood sugar control and so on. There is Viera Carlos also has the same question about coffee and health. I think we covered a lot of ground on that one. So let's see where we go into. Just a quick easy question from Patrick Kramer. You are now running your biohacking retreats called Biohacking Week in US. Do you have any plans to do those in Europe?
So we've played around with the idea of doing them in different locations around the world. That may be something more geared for 2018 or 2019. Right now, they take place in Chicago, but I'm going to be moving to Delray Beach, Florida with my girlfriend. And next one that's taking place at the end of August is probably going to be in Florida. So we're going to take some of the things that were specific to Chicago, and we're going to find some variations of them that better suit the sunny environment and ocean in Florida.
Gotcha. Actually, 2018 or something, maybe we could do something like this if you come as a speaker once again for the Biohacker Summit. In any future episodes, you could, join an extra week to run the Biohacking Week in Finland or wherever you're going to be. So that might be one opportunity. And for anyone listening in, there is Herbal Jedi, Yarrow Willard, coming from Canada, and he's going to be running how to kind of rewild yourself and reconnect with nature, and how to hunt for roots and mushrooms and all those things. He's going to be taking a group of people into the wilderness alongside with his workshop that is right after the Biohacker Summit in Helsinki. It's mushroom season, so if anyone of you is interested, that's coming up also. By the way, how did you, Anthony, like Biohacker Summit yourself?
I loved Biohacker Summit. I think that's a fantastic idea about doing a biohacking week in Helsinki. I get invited to a good amount of events around the world, and Biohacker Summit is without a doubt one of my favorite, if not my favorite event. And what you guys are doing is really special. And anyone that's interested in optimizing performance and becoming the best version of themselves should really get out there.
Yeah, and we have a promotion going on right now at biohack.to/live. You can get us an early bird price ticket. There is David Avocado Wolfe is coming. He's one of the top experts on superfoods. There is Also, it's likely that Aubrey Marcus from On It will be there, and Ben Greenfield, definitely from Ben Greenfield Fitness Podcast, is going to be there. And there's a bunch of really cool people coming over. So check it out. Let's go on with the questions. So Brian Hidalgo is asking, I want to ask, what are the few inexpensive biohacks and lifestyle habits and things that I could do? So there's a bunch of questions like that. If you don't have all the money for the supplements or the cool gear or a full body cryo chamber or whatever, so what can you get your hands into that is kind of, what is the minimum thing that you could do that has maximum results and effects in your experience?
Yeah. So one of the patterns that I'm seeing a lot, and this is an area that we've identified as a great opportunity for a lot of people, is like I call it a 7-day circadian reset. And basically, you get in the car or you rent a car, preferably a convertible, so that you're exposed to the sun. Timo, you there?
Yeah. Go on.
Oh, okay, cool. You basically head out and you go camping somewhere really sunny for a week, where you're sleeping on the ground, sleeping on the earth. If you're in the car, you're still exposed to the sun and the elements. No electronics after sunset. You're lighting a fire every night. And yeah, that's a really powerful way to charge up our sun battery, to get us reconnected with the earth. And if you can go somewhere where there's water, whether that's a lake, a stream, an ocean, and get in the water for 10 to 30 minutes or more every day, it's a pretty miraculous combination that reduces some of the harmful effects of these EMFs that we're exposed to. It charges up our battery with sunlight, and that's one of those things that many of us are deficient in. And you're getting fresh air, we're getting nature, and it's pretty inexpensive. So that's where I would start for just about everybody.
Yeah, and I would also add my favorite, which is plunging, cold plunges. So just like getting into cold water, cold showers, all those things. A lot of good benefits from there. And let's see.
I'm going to miss that most about Chicago, is being able to cold plunge in the wintertime.
Yeah. Sita Bandare Baranse? Pindare something is discipline the only request for a greater work-life balance? So I know that you're a pretty disciplined guy, and I kind of see that a lot of biohackers are also hacking habits and kind of getting rid of the habits that are not useful for their growth, and getting the habits in that would grow them. So what kind of level of discipline would you kind of go for? And do you have any remorse to yourself?
So I think that discipline plays a role, but there are things that supersede discipline and willpower. So, for example, my girlfriend and I recently noticed that because we do go camping a lot, when we'd come back to the city, productivity would plummet. My girlfriend would find herself feeling a little bit more anxious. Things that she did not experience at all when we were camping. And I started really looking at the environments where I was spending a lot of time, where I was sleeping, where I was working, and where I spent the most time in our apartment in Chicago. And we found that some of those environments, we were exposed to large amounts of EMFs. And for example, like in our bedroom, the wall that we slept up against, our neighbor had a high-powered Wi-Fi router right on the other side of the wall. And so waking up and being disciplined mattered much less because I didn't feel as effective during that time that I was working. We felt a little bit more tired. We felt like it was harder for us to concentrate. And when we made an effort to clean up those environments, to spend more time in nature, the time that I did work was more productive. And and that was part of the reason that we came up to the lake house a little bit earlier than expected. And I'm working about half the time up here, but the work that I'm doing is more focused and it's more productive.
Gotcha.
So I do think that discipline matters, and having a morning routine, having some non-negotiables in the morning that help you to feel your best is important. But a lot of times we mistake activity for progress, and paying attention to, are you in an environment that fosters progress and you doing your best work can sometimes be even more important.
Yeah, I think what you're kind of going for is basically that you should hack your environment as much as you hack yourself. And those go hand in hand. There's all kinds of triggers in our environment, just like there are trigger foods that kind of get us into the wrong direction. There's all kinds of trigger habits. And I'm right now in a moment in my life where I'm kind of getting rid of all kinds of things that are consuming my energy and attention. That might be additional stuff or files on my hard drive or emails in my inbox. So just getting to inbox zero, getting my desk cleaned and my house rid of all kinds of things that I don't need. That's kind of one of the key things, to have more room also for new thoughts to emerge. And that's why I'm also going travel. And when you mentioned the fact that you go for camping and to the forest and so on, the Japanese do forest bathing. So there is a bunch of studies that show really, the effects on that. And I personally measured the effects on cortisol levels and also stress levels in general. And the heart rate variability goes through the roof when I'm in nature, sleeping on the ground instead of inside, wherever, sitting on someone's router.
Yeah, exactly. I've experienced the same thing, and I think we both use the Oura Ring as one of the diagnostic tools for. Yep. And I've been unable to replicate the sleep scores I can get in nature, in a tent on the ground, in an apartment in Chicago.
Gotcha.
No matter how many biohacks I employ.
Yeah, I think I'm going to jump into a set of questions that are related to supplementation, and you're an expert on those things. So. Adriano Torres is asking, the amount of information on supplement is simply overwhelming. How do I, build my stack? Where should I start?
Well, it depends on what you have going on. I think that all supplementation should be customized. Now, there are a few things that most people benefit from. Those would be magnesium, highly absorbed bioavailable form of magnesium, like magnesium malate or magnesium glycinate. Most people do well with a high DHA fish oil, like I use a lot of Nordic Naturals Pro DHA 1000 with clients. A good probiotic like Prescript Assist. You're not going to go wrong with any of those. And then there are people that most individuals will also benefit from a good quality B vitamin complex for energy production. So depending on whether it's someone that has single nucleotide polymorphisms like MTHFR, they're going to do better with like a Thorne Methyl Guard, which gets them much higher amounts of B vitamins. And those people need help with detoxification and energy production and neurotransmitter production. But just about anyone will benefit from a good B complex. You just want to look for the right types of B vitamins because there are a lot. So if you're looking at B12, you don't want to get the synthetic cyanocobalamin. You want to look for like a methylcobalamin or a hydroxycobalamin. Yeah, an active form in the body. For B6, you want to look for P5FP or pyridoxal 5-phosphate, not the pyridoxine HCl. So if you have B vitamins, look and as we spout off some of these nerdy long words, you can see which form your vitamin has, and if you're taking a synthetic or a bioactive form, and if you're taking a bioactive form, are you taking the most bioactive form and really getting the most bang for your buck? Those are some of the places that I would start. But again, if someone has health issues, if they have energy production problems, you want to ask the question of why. What is at the root cause of that? Is it toxic overload? Is it a hidden infection? Whether that's parasites, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, candida. You want to be asking, is it Epstein-Barr? Or is what else could be affecting your mitochondria? Are you just not getting enough sunlight, and that's why you're tired? There's a lot of different things. So usually the best approach starts with asking the right questions.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think there's a question also on testing. We're going to get into that, but before that, let's pick this one. David Braswell is asking, what are the best foods and supplements to ingest for optimal energy, mood, motivation, etc.? So, what's kind of like, good baseline, and what would you throw in as a kind of a curveball, kind of uncommon foods or supplements that you have discovered that are useful for energy, mood, and motivation, etc.?
Yeah, so a lot of the low-hanging fruit for people are if you make about 80% of what you consume a wide variety of plants. If you have adrenal issues or blood sugar issues, keeping those plants, more vegetables and low sugar fruit like organic blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, that's going to serve you well, and high quality fats. I usually recommend starting with plant-based fats and then gradually phasing in, animal-based fats, because some people, if their immune system has kind of run amok and they're dealing with some autoimmunity, grass-fed meats and things like that can be problematic at first. So you want to take a step back and go with some of the more well-tolerated plant-based fats and a wide variety of plants and those polyphenols that can have a really powerful healing effect on the body. I think an area that a lot of people also miss is raw wild seafood. Mm-hmm. So for male clients, I have them eating at least 18 raw wild oysters a week. In the U.S., I encourage those to be East Coast, just as a precautionary measure to minimize anything that could have come from the Fukushima spill in 2011 and be affecting the West Coast. And for women, it's about a dozen of raw oysters a week. But you can also get ceviche. You can also get a good quality sushi. But you want to know where it's coming from, and is it the farm raised stuff? Is it wild? I think a lot of people aren't getting enough plants, and they're not getting enough of the wild seafood, particularly of the raw variety.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. There's actually in the chat a few questions on the omega-3 oils. There's Toni Joutinen who is asking that when you focused on your talk at Bikers Summit on DHA as the second most important supplement, what would be a kind of recommended dose? What would you go for? And there's also another question about what would be kind of the right amount for helping to produce or build testosterone from kefir.
Yeah, so I do about 4 capsules of the Nordic Naturals Pro DHA per day. It's Pro DHA 1000. So I believe that's around 2,000 milligrams per day. But then you're also getting a lot from food. So at least 18 raw oysters per week. I'm doing raw wild seafood, probably another 2 to 3 meals a week. And also along with that, the question that sometimes gets raised is, are you concerned about heavy metal toxicity, or consuming too much mercury? And as a way to kind of prevent that, I also focus on sweating 30 to 60 minutes a day. Gotcha. And doing that in the sun, getting some of those infrared rays.
The oysters are also a really good source of zinc, that's for sure. And when it comes to kind of thinking about the food chain, the fish that are large fish, that are predator fish that eat other fish, are often accumulating a lot of these heavy metals. So if you go down the food chain, phytoplankton, you might go for oysters. You might go for shellfish in general. I haven't looked at the levels of heavy metals in those, but I would assume they are probably very much lower than any other things. And oysters, eating raw those things, I mean, very good source of a lot of the good things, and probably less likely to get a mercury poisoning from those.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And there are some good sources of phytoplankton, like Oceans Alive is one that I use myself and with some clients. And you can get these things in supplemental form. You can get them fresh is always better, but it is easy to get. Like Wild Planet makes a decent source canned oyster for people that aren't able to get fresh, that's pretty readily accessible.
Yeah. How about elderly people? So there is Fausto Arcos is asking, is it really important to increase protein supplementation after 50 years age? And if you have any other recommendation for someone who is aging?
Yeah, so I think that, again, this depends where you're at and how much protein you're consuming right now. I've had some pretty interesting conversations with Ori Hofmeckler, author of the Warrior Diet, and we did a fun episode of the Biohacking Secrets Show podcast, where he talks about this misplaced obsession with protein that a lot of people have. And as we get older, it's important to spend less time in an anabolic state and not more. And that's because our body has this decreased capacity to fight off infections and cancers. And as a lot of people blindly follow their doctor's recommendation to eat more and more and more protein, they're actually doing themselves a disservice and increasing the risk of many chronic degenerative diseases and cancers. So Ori has gradually transitioned to more of a vegan vegetarian diet. He's in his mid 50s now, and I've done something similar where I'm eating less protein as opposed to more, and finding that sweet spot of how much protein do I need to get my brain those healthy fats, the DHAs that we've talked about, and maintain muscle, but not so much that I'm spending too much time in an anabolic state.
I see. I know that some bodybuilders have kind of now a trend of going for even low protein diets. So what's kind of, when you say that you're getting less protein, how many grams are you talking about per body kilogram?
Yeah, so for people that are dealing with health issues, you can go pretty low, even 50 to 70 grams per day. I don't know the exact conversions per kilogram, and it's usually, and I usually do it when I'm calculating it. I'll do it per per pound of lean body mass, which is a little bit different than.
So how would you go for that one?
So there's a website that you can go to. If you type in Google like lean body mass calculator, I think the website is like calculator.net, and then it's like /lean body mass calculator or something like that, and it has 3 different formulas, like the James formula, the Hume formula. And you basically will get 3, you put in like your age, you put in your height, you put in your weight, and you put in your gender. And then it will tell you, using the 3 algorithms, your lean body mass. And what I usually do is I remove the outlier, and then I take the remaining 2 and I average them and say, okay, this is my lean body mass. And then let's say you get a lean body mass for a male, for like a 30-pound male, that lean body mass comes to 200 pounds. Hopefully this isn't too much math. If that lean body mass comes to 200 pounds, then a good starting place is around 0.7 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. So it would be about 140 grams of protein for a male with 200 pounds lean body mass, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. There's a few questions about how to get kind of those muscular definitions, including abs, etc. Steve Goderman is asking that, he's tried intermittent fasting, he's tried carb cycling, other dietary plans, doesn't mention which ones, but he can't seem to shed those few extra percentage to get into that. On the chat, John Mecca is asking, he's 54 years old, good shape, no medical issues, generally feels good. He has a lot of muscle, but he also has some extra fat on the lower third midsection. So what would be kind of the best way to attack that? Like, what would you go for?
Yeah, so this was kind of a funny story and an experience that I went through, because I'd always been more of an endomorph, and it's easy for me to gain weight, difficult for me to lose weight. And I always had like some definition, but it wasn't really until I expanded my paradigm and started including a lot of detoxification strategies, really looking at my overall lifestyle and environment, that I saw my body shape change. And oddly enough, one of the things that made a big difference for me was coffee enemas. And I'm not saying everybody that wants more definition should go get coffee enemas. I'm using this as an example that a lot of times toxic overload, especially in the liver, can hold us back from burning fat. And one of the places that our body stores fat is it stores toxins is in the adipose tissue. So until we do things to decrease our body's toxic burden, a lot of times we're going to hold on to that fat, regardless of how much CrossFit we do, regardless of ketogenic diet or paleo diet or any of that. And when I started doing coffee enemas, within the first couple weeks, I lost about 10 pounds of stubborn belly fat that had persisted no matter how hard I worked out, no matter how strict I got with my diet. It wasn't until that point when I really started focusing on detoxification that I made some progress with body composition and getting rid of some of that hard to lose weight. So I would say look at hormones, of course, especially if you're a male in your 50s. There's probably lower testosterone levels, possibly lower growth hormone levels, possibly lower DHEA levels. You want to look at the relationship between testosterone and estrogens. So get your blood work and make sure that you're getting the right tests so that you know what's going on in the inside. And then if you're doing that, you've probably got 5 decades of accumulated toxins that you would serve yourself well getting rid of, and your mitochondria will work better too. It's not just body composition. Your energy levels will go through the roof, mental clarity will increase, all that good stuff.
Jennifer Baines is asking about, if I would write this question, it's basically about if you have restrictive budget and you cannot afford like a full panel, what would you pick? Like, what are the kind of essential lab tests and biomarkers you would go after to just get a baseline idea what's going on?
So this is Jennifer, a female?
Yeah.
The easiest place to start is a company called Life Extension. They have a blood panel that they call the Female Elite Panel. So I would go to lifeextension.com, I would go to their blood tests, and I would pull up the Female Elite Panel, and I would get all of those tests. The test that I would also get in addition to that would be a ferritin test. You want to know where your iron levels are at, because with women, it is common that we see low iron or post-menopause high iron levels. So if you wanted to make it real easy without me listing off specific tests, that Female Elite Panel, it looks at your sex hormones, it looks at markers of aging, and then I would stack with that the ferritin test and know where your iron levels are at, because that's an often overlooked complicating factor.
Gotcha. Let's jump into sleep hacking. So there is on the chat side. There is a question from Torres about recommendations for supplementation for better sleep, and if you have any recommendations for dosages on melatonin. There's also another question from Jaakko. He has an Oura Ring, just like we do. He's in his 50s, and he only gets like 5 to 20 minutes of deep sleep per night. And he has tried a lot of like tricks like hot showers, exercise, blocking blue light wavelengths in the evening, lowering room temperature, earthing, some supplements. He rarely sleeps also past 5:30 a.m. in the morning, no matter how when he goes to sleep. So. I know you're also a sleep hacker. So what would be your recommendations for anyone who wants to increase deep sleep and maybe sleep longer? And what kind of supplementation would also be cool?
Yeah. So I think that we are at a point in time right now where we're just starting to realize the dangers of these unnatural EMFs that we're exposed to with Wi-Fi, with cell phones, with smart meters, even high-powered power lines. And I think that they're disrupting melatonin production and they're preventing deep sleep, perhaps more than anything else in our environment. So I would say step number 1, if someone is having a lot of sleep problems, is to get something like this Coronet electrosmog meter and use to check their sleep environment and minimize unnatural EMFs in their work environment, in their sleep environment, and in their home where they spend a lot of time, maybe where they watch TV. Step number 2 is I would get 30 to 60 minutes of sweating ideally outdoors in the sun. Take your shirt off. Don't be wearing sunglasses and a hat, which is blocking a lot of that sunlight from getting to your eyes. Remove as many of the layers as you can between your body and the natural world. So kind of do the opposite of what you see everybody else around you doing. If you haven't already done that 7-day reset that I mentioned and that we have inside the members area at biohackingsecrets.com, do a 7-day reset, go camping, get as many hours of sunlight as you can per day without burning. Any of the risks of sunlight only happen when we burn. And shut down all electronics at or before sunset, light a fire each night, get in the water 20 to 30 minutes every day, do that reset. That will give you a big clue as to how much of your deep sleep issues are stemming from unnatural EMFs and just a lack of connection with the natural world. And then something that we've seen really, really helpful is cold plunges, but we don't get as much of a ROI from the cold showers. Usually like ice baths. I have a Balin stock tank on my balcony in Chicago. So sometimes we'll use like a delivery service like Postmates or Instacart where they deliver groceries to your place. And I'll order like 2 20-pound bags of ice and then dump those in the tank, let them melt about 50 to 70%, and then jump in there. Also making sure to get your thyroid and dunking your head a few times. Building up to 8 to 12 minutes of a cold plunge. That can really be helpful. And most people get a pretty big return from those types of practices. If that doesn't get the job done, there are things like, let me see if I have it handy, like this, which is, well, it's tangled up. Here we go. So this is a Fisher-Wallace stimulator, which uses electrostimulation, and I've found that on days that I do like 2 20-minute sessions with this, my deep sleep is substantially higher. But I don't use that at all when I'm camping or doing a reset. It's just not necessary. So look at your environment, use cold plunges, ice baths, get into natural bodies of water. Be aware of what you're exposing yourself to and find ways to decrease those unnatural EMFs. 30 to 60 minutes of exercise outside with as much of your eyes and skin exposed to natural sunlight as possible, and do a reset.
Gotcha. Okay. So, by the way, we had the question about lab tests for women. So, what would you go for men? Is another question from the chat. And Roope Kärki is also asking, what is the best kind of basic test one should be taking on a regular intervals? Would that be to look at a blood panel or hormone levels, or what should you track over a long time?
Yeah. So again, to make it simple, the most important test for men, I would pull up all of the things that are included in the Life Extension Male Elite panel. One of the things that we do at Biohacking Week, which at the event which you mentioned earlier, is I take all of the specific tests that I order for myself and clients, and then I give the reference ranges for optimal performance, not just like for the absence of disease, but where we want to be for optimal performance. And I take an example of my most recent blood test that I did in April 2017. And then we go through that together, and I have people identify where things are off, where things can be optimized, and we talk about different strategies for optimizing that. If people bring in their blood test, I go through it with them, and we do it as kind of like a fun exercise. And a lot of people really enjoy that and find it beneficial, because I think that it's one of the most important skills to know what test to order. So if you want to keep it simple, for a male elite panel, Life Extension, get all of those tests, have your doctor order them, or order them through Life Extension if they service your area. And then knowing how to identify problems, shortcomings, what's the difference between functional and optimal, and perhaps most importantly, what to do if something's off.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you live in the US, probably going to Anthony's Biohacking Week is one of the best ways to kickstart yourself with a lot of these things. There's a question from David Hanion that, looking at your trailers and all that, it's all like 20 plus something, really fit people. So he's asking, got anything for us old goats? So...
Yeah, it's the trailers kind of do portray that. But the events, I mean, we've had guys in their 50s at every Biohacking Week event, and a lot of clients are in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, and it's now more than ever we're seeing this myth that things just decline and get worse and worse as we age, dispelled. And people are realizing, I can actually get better with age if I have the right strategies. So I would encourage anyone, whether they're in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, to try out some of this stuff. If it works for you, which I believe it will, then come out to Biohacking Week or do some work in person. But we put enough stuff out there with the free Biohackers Guide and with our membership site that you can try it and say, all right, yeah, this does work for me. And the strategy is not that different whether you're in your 30s or your 60s.
Gotcha. Yeah. On the Biohackers Handbook, we have a bunch of things that, fit all kinds of age levels. And you've wrote the foreword for the Biohackers Handbook on exercise. And there's a bunch of things that have been researched in terms of exercise and hacking your body and so on. Can you remember any kind of good takeaways or anything that you saw in that manuscript, like that you read, that kind of picked your eye, how that kind of sticked out from the crowd of biohacking advice?
Yeah, I think that what I really like about your approach is kind of it follows the transition I've made, where people start realizing as they get into the higher decades of life that the bodybuilder approach doesn't necessarily serve energy production the way that we would like. It's better than doing nothing for sure, but you guys focus on aerobic capacity, you focus on mitochondrial health, you focus on doing the right types of high intensity work that doesn't exceed your body's ability to recover. You focus on posture and biomechanics, things that a lot of people aren't discussing, and but are critical foundational elements of exercise and movement. Like walking, for example, can be one of the best forms of exercise if you're doing it with good posture. But if your posture is jacked up, walking can actually make you worse. So I really love the way that you guys have an approach that encompasses a lot of the overlooked facets of movement and exercise to stimulate an adaptive response without exceeding the body's ability to recover.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if anyone is interested in the Biohackers Handbook, we have a subscription going on. So you get all the electronic copies of the chapters as they come out. And the final book, as it comes out, I have the Finnish version here. It's a pretty huge totem. It's kind of the handbook that sets the foundations. And we're also going to be sending to all the people who subscribe for this webinar also a link to your book that you can get for just the shipping costs only. And the Biohacker's Guide is very much a hands-on manuscript. So there's a lot of tools and techniques that you can immediately use to upgrade your biology. So that's very cool. Check it out. The questions related to the mind and kind of cognitive performance, there's a question from Anna Korolyuk. By the way, Anna, if you're listening, you're the winner of the one-on-one 30-minute consultation with Anthony. So I'm going to hook you up through email on Skype. So let's see.
Congratulations, Anna.
Yeah, congratulations, Anna. So Anna's question is how to eat to stay smart. What would you go for?
How to eat to stay smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would focus on about 50 to 80% of your calories coming from healthy fats, clean burning fuels. So we talked a little bit about DHA. There's also, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, C8 pure caprylic acid, or it's brain octane or pyrrolocaptri. Those are some brands that you could get. Keeping your blood sugar low and stable during the day. And then if you are going to spike it, like we talked about, for some of the anabolic benefits or as like a carb refeed, doing that at night. so that you can also piggyback off of increased serotonin production and use that to get a deeper, more restful night's sleep, which kind of goes back to the question earlier about hacking sleep. Some people are just too low carb, and that's negatively affecting their sleep too. And by integrating some sweet potatoes or yams or squash or even white rice, if they tolerate grains, at night with dinner, that can be a game changer for them sleeping better.
Gotcha. Diego Smalzi is asking if I could mix 3 things to increase my cognitive ability, what would it be?
If we were going to discuss specific substances, I'm a big fan of alpha GPC to boost choline levels in the brain. Vinpocetine, which is an extract of the periwinkle plant that increases cerebral metabolism and blood flow to the brain. And the third one would probably be it's a sublingual form of methylcobalamin, vitamin B12, and methylfolate. And those 3 would be a good place to start. Maybe, I'd probably put DHA in there as well. But those are 3 or 4 the ones that I would start with.
Those are kind of supporting the basic, function of the healthy brain. And there's another question about that, which is a bit more specific from Elliot Horowitz about how to improve or enhance the health of myelination in the brain. So, what would you go for?
I would make sure you're consuming enough healthy fats. And one of the things that none of us like to do, but is really important, especially when you're starting out, is to track your food. Just get an app like Carb Manager or Chronometer or MyFitnessPal or any of those, and for a week or 2, put everything you're eating in there and see where is your fat as a percentage of total calories? How much protein are you getting? How many grams of fiber are you getting? Where are your net carbohydrates, which are your total carbohydrates minus total grams of fiber? And because it really is difficult to make changes if you don't know where you're starting. And a lot of people who feel like they're getting a ton of healthy fats, when they start tracking, they'll realize that fat is only 30 or 40% of their total calories, and they need to pick it up, which, and that's probably the low-hanging fruit for myelination.
There is a pretty interesting talk on TED from Dr. Terry Walls on about mitochondria, minding your mitochondria, and she has also developed this Walls protocol that she personally used to deal with her Parkinson's disease, and it's pretty substantial material. She promotes a lot dark green leafy vegetables as well as some of the basic kind of building blocks here. By the way, what other books would you recommend? Kind of like what's in your library?
I like Jack's book Epipaleo RX. That's a good place to start, and he's really he's one of the people that's ahead of the curve with this stuff. It can get a little bit heavy, the material. That's
that's Jack absolutely. You have to kind of do your own field work while you read his stuff. So that's Jack Kruse, by the way, if someone didn't get the last name.
Yeah, and but I think where a lot of people can benefit is actually taking a step back and dispelling this obsession we have with information accumulation, and instead really developing the first 30 to 90 minutes of their day and finding what makes them feel their best and doing that without exception in order to get into a state of high performance as fast as possible. And some books that are great for that are Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect, and Jeff Olson's book, The Sledge. I think that there's enough information out there where a lot of people already have what they need there, at least to get started and make an improvement from where they're at this point in time, and focusing on habits and mental toughness, and really realizing that we all have to overcome that resistance each morning to do the thing that we know we should. and accepting that and saying, I'm going to do it anyway.
All right. Another question on the brain side. So, what would be the best exercise for strengthening your brain? This question comes from Anders Schutt-Toroy.
I recommend. I think a lot of people, especially because of the bastardization of cardio that's taken place over this past decade, a lot of people neglect it, and they instead focus on strength training or high intensity interval training because they want to get it done fast. But building a bigger aerobic engine, whether that is through jogging, through stand-up paddleboarding, through using a rebounder, through cycling, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But there really is not a substitute for that 20 to 60 minutes of steady state cardio a few times a week, and what that does for our brain, and what that does for our mitochondria, and what that does for a short-term decrease in blood oxygen saturation that long-term increases blood oxygen saturation. I think that we're overlooking that energy system, and a lot of people figuring out what you can do. If you can't jog because your knees hurt, get a rebounder and put your rebounder outside and jump in the sun for 20 minutes. You know, if you can't use a rebounder, get in a sauna or an infrared sauna and build up your resistance to stress and get rid of toxins that may be causing that inflammation and pain. No matter where you are, there's something you can do to sweat and build a bigger aerobic engine and release some of those heat shock proteins.
That's really good advice, because I mean, the brain is pretty hungry for blood, and the more efficient your cardiovascular system is, the better, obviously. So the more blood your brain gets that is well nourished is one of the key cornerstones. And there are some supplements that you can also use to expand capillaries and increase blood flow. And ginkgo biloba is one of the kind of herbs that I find pretty useful for this particular task. And I think there is also, on the supplementation side, there is vimposetin is another one that is often found in nootropics supplements. Is there any other kind of like weird herbs or something that you, Anthony, have come across that you kind of are fond about for any reason?
Yeah, I've been using, is this for brain health or just for overall energy and supplementation?
You can choose which way you go.
Yeah, I use creatine. I use creatine for brain health and energy. Creatine in the body is one of the means by which we store ATP. You can kind of think of it as like, to simplify everything, it's almost like stored ATP in the body. And some of us have a decreased ability to make creatine, whether that's because our diet is deficient in certain foods, or we're dealing with underlying health issues. And for me, a combination of the right types of creatine, I take creatine hydrochloride and a pharmaceutical grade creatine monohydrate. Both of those I notice improved cognitive performance, better mood, increased sex drive, and increased lean muscle mass. So that's one that I found particularly helpful.
Gotcha. We are slowly getting to the end of here, so let's throw in some more general big picture questions into the discussion. Myhyvärinen is asking, what is the bigger purpose of biohacking? So why should anyone, get motivated of this chat, or, read ours or your book and kind of get into biohacking? What's your reasons?
For me, I think biohacking is all about what are the tiniest changes that produce the biggest results in your energy, your health, your happiness, and empower you to become the best version of yourself. I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. And like when I was really, really sick, I had 1 or 2 hours a day of productive time. And so I couldn't go work out for 2 hours, or I'd be completely run down. Or I couldn't afford to waste time on strategies that didn't work or produced a low return on invested time and energy. So biohacking was the solution. I say, how do I take this 1 hour and turn it into 3 or 4 hours? What are the tiniest things I could do with this 1 hour that will give me 4 or 5 hours of productivity in a month from now. And I think that's really what it is. How do we optimize our health and energy to reach our full potential?
Very cool. Very cool. What would be your recommendations that you would give to your, child, for example, eventually one day? So based on your life experience, what kind of like your fatherly advice based on everything that you have done and all the mistakes you've done, kind of like what would you take as kind of life guiding principles and kind of very specific even kind of things or techniques or skills to accumulate? So what would you go for?
I think as humans, we learn through experience, and I can give advice and tell my future son or daughter something, but if he or she experiences it themselves, that's when that's when he or she is going to really believe it. So what I would say is knowing that on a long enough timeline, the things that we stick with are the things that make us feel good and the things that we enjoy, that are fun, right? I would try to give my son or daughter as many of those experiences as possible early in life so that he or she wants to do them on their own later in life. So I would take him or her camping. And I would make that a fun experience. I would expose him or her to a lot of different sports and athletic activities where they're in a community, they're connected to other boys and girls, and they're associating play and movement with fun. And I would just put them in those types of situations, making it fun to be outside and in nature, playing water sports and things in the ocean, teaching them how to surf and stuff like that. And then as they get a little bit older, if they want, teaching them how to meditate and really control their stress levels so that as the inevitable happens in life, they know how to bring themselves back to baseline or establish their grid before they start their day so that they feel more centered and focused.
Very cool. Thank you so much for that advice. And I absolutely can relate to that. I hope I knew all these things when I was younger. I could save so many years of my life and probably would have achieved so much more with that advice. So with that, very cool stuff. Actually, I want to ask you one thing. I know you're very much a mindful guy, and it's often about high performance. It's about kicking ass. Lifting a lot of weights. Doing all kinds of things, being productive. But you also talk about camping and going to the nature and getting sunlight and all that. You didn't mention meditation, but there's a question by Torres that if you do meditation frequently, there's a question also on the pre-questions from Jussi Mäenpää. Does mindfulness affect your energy levels and performance and so on? So what can you say about winding down and kind of just like focusing on inwards instead of outwards?
Yeah, for me, mindfulness and meditation is one of those non-negotiables that I have to have as a part of the first 90 minutes of my day. So right now, the abbreviated version while I'm on vacation is movement and sweating, ideally outside in the sun, and then followed by meditation. And then here by the water, so we're at this time of year where the water changes temperature, and as it becomes warmer, a whole bunch of these small fish called alewives die off, and they wash on the shore. And as I'm down by the water meditating, I'm just getting eaten alive by these flies. So I found it a little bit difficult for me to meditate while being breakfast for these flies. So I went into the water and kind of combined my plunge while looking at the sun with my meditation. And I just did some breath work in the water, really synchronizing mind and body and trying to find what the Japanese call kokoro, that alignment of the heart and the mind. And I do that during my runs too. A lot of my morning exercise I try to do as a form of moving meditation and just slowing everything down and a little bit out of my head and into my body and feeling rather than thinking, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm already picking up some winners here who will get access to previous Biohackers Summit recordings. If you already purchased one, you get the one you don't have yet. So there is Kiefir Hunter. She's been, or he, I don't know. She's been extremely active on the chat. So I want to congratulate getting hands on this thing. And there's also Pia. Pia also corrected me that the Terry Walls, she didn't have Parkinson's, she had MS, which is exactly right. So thanks for that correction. Pia Pitkänen also gets access to the previous recordings. So I mean, very cool. So final words, Anthony. Where can people find more, and if they want to, get their hands on some of your stuff?
Yeah, the two best places for people to start, biohackersguide.com, pick up the book for free. We ship it anywhere in the U.S. for free. We're working on a digital version. But then we also have a biohacking community where we share a lot of the strategies that we're using since the publication of the book. And that's at biohackingsecrets.com. And that's where people can try these things, see that it works for them. And then if they want more, they can check out Biohacking Week and some of those other cool events. And we also have the podcast, the Biohacking Secrets Show, where we interview a lot of the top biohacking experts in the world and talk about what they're doing. And we need to have you on there, Teemu, for an episode and really dive deep where I get to ask the questions and you get to share some of your nuggets of wisdom with the audience.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. And I mean, anyone who wants to hang around with us or any other biohackers and Anthony eventually in some of our future events should definitely come to Biohackers Summit in Helsinki. It's 13th, 14th October. It's very hands-on biohacking conference, so there's a very cool demo area. You have these wireless headphones through which you can listen to the talks while you walk around. You look at different. We have Brain Battle where you can. Basically, all doping is allowed. You can, do anything you like. Cold plunges. We have a thermogenic spa. There is saunas, traditional Finnish saunas, infrared saunas, cold and hot tubs. There's going to be also this year kind of a extra construction on the outside that has fresh air, the brain hacking bar. We're going to put all kinds of things that you can use. And then there's the Brain Battle, and then you can enter into that. It's kind of cognitive test, extremely demanding. Last year we had really good contestants, so you can test which one of those things really kind of make a big benefit for you. And if you want to wind down, we also have the VIP lounge for VIP guests with all kinds of superfoods and supplements free to take, and good viewing around the area. And on the headphones, you will be able to switch on also meditation tracks and binaural beats, and you can go to a sleep capsule and just like or some kind of mat that resonates with every cell in your body. And that's going to be pretty cool hands-on stuff. So what can you, Anthony, add? You had the first-hand experience.
You have to get to Biohacker Summit. Whether you've been, then you already know this. So if you haven't been, then make a point to get there this year. Not only for everything that you're going to be exposed to that you probably didn't even know existed, and that was true for me too. Who's like, this is my space, and I was playing around with things at Biohacker Summit that I didn't even know were on the market. So it's really, really cool. But it's also like a lot of this journey, you can feel like, your friends don't understand or your family doesn't understand. And like when you go to a place and there's thousands of people who are all about becoming the best version of themselves and using science and nature and technology to optimize performance, you're like, this is my tribe. This is where I belong. And it's a really cool, fun experience, great speakers. So invest in yourself and get your butt to Biohacker Summit.
Cool. Thank you, Anthony. And definitely it's for making friends. I consider you a really good friend of mine now that I had the opportunity to hang around with you and just like a ton of fun. So with this, thank you, Anthony, for your time and all this. And if you're wondering about the recording of this talk, if you didn't get all of it, it's already available right after this, and you can rewind on Facebook. And we also have a YouTube channel, the Biohackers Summit YouTube channel. You will find it there. And we will be sending also a kind of a follow-up email that also includes the links and all that. If you are still wondering, what was that and where can I get my hands on that stuff? So very cool. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you, Teemu. Awesome hanging out as always.
Yeah, I have to search for my bunny. It's gone. I don't know, fishing or eating a carrot somewhere. I have an office bunny, and it's over there. I'm gonna bring it over so you can see my bunny.
Lucita, where's Lucita? Here, where's Lucita?
Hello.
Oh, that's hilarious. It's so cute. We both got our office pets. Oh, that's cute. He's got an office bunny.
It's totally taking over.
It's huge. It's like the biggest rabbit I've ever seen.
That was a cute moment. If I get high heart rate variability from something, it's a bunny for sure, or any kind of animal, a dog or a cat or anything like this. So I love it. Thank you so much, Anthony. And thank you, and thank you for everyone listening in. I'm gonna play the Biker Summit trailer, and off we go. Have a healthy, evening and upgraded week for the rest of the week. Cool. See you later.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
I look at biohacking in this event as a critical step in self-mastery.
Kind of everybody's a biohacker if you try to do something to optimize your body, and to a certain extent, who doesn't?
You become mentally and physically overwhelmingly powerful.
Sleep is key for brain function.
So you test yourself, and then you test yourself again, and then you test yourself again, and see what works for you.
How can I use this to enhance myself, to upgrade myself?
I'm hacking people's biology because I'm hacking people's brains. That can overall enhance your quality of life, which is the goal, of course.
We need to know what we're putting in our body.
How our diet and lifestyle can change our genes.
Have a fantastic day here at the Biohacking Summit.
One, two, three.
4.4 degrees Celsius for 20 seconds, and you can increase norepinephrine in your brain by like 300%.
I wouldn't miss it for the world. It's perfectly organized, really well done.
And you just know when you're here that it's a good place to be.